I hope I never get to the point to where 10 minutes of my time is worth 40 cents. Well, and
I'm
it's
not a fan of, "Hey, let's just get you 200 leads." Like, if I wanted to get you 200 leads, I'll just go buy a leads list and give it to you. You're gonna have the same outcome as if you cold call, 3, 400 people or none of
mm,
it. It's still very low conversion rate, right? So, I'm very big on that warm marketing perspective, but trying to position them beforehand so that we can start doing the warm outreach towards their services that position them to the right audience.
mm.
And so we've just come up with a system that I've seen with building creative that with the gyms that we have worked with that help them bring in not just that sustainability of lead flow, but it's higher conversion rate. I mean, I think the two biggest things I think people look at when they're looking to go work out somewhere is, fortunately, this is true. How close is it to my house? Because you have to go there every day, right?
Convenience.
Or run. I love to run. So I love to run to the gym. So I'm like, how close is it to my house?
I like it.
And I think second is how's the customer service?
You still running out here in this heat, though?
No, dude. I'm doing the gym. I have to. I use
Butter gym today, I think.
I tried to do the whole at home gym, and that's kind of what like got me to this because I was like, I think our society's moving away from wanting to work out from home all the time.
Yeah,
They need that space and that community to have that mental clarity.
yeah.
And so they want to find their community. And I think that that's kind of my vision and what my vision's turning into is
Yeah,
like, I don't help the gyms. I help the gyms
people.
goers find their
I
community.
love that, man, because, like, you're looking at the community as a whole. That's kinda more so how I'm going now, looking more at the community. But I interrupted you, though. You said the customer service or satisfaction was the second thing, right?
Yeah, really just customer satisfaction. So you're gonna look up and you're gonna probably go on the maps and look for them. You're gonna look at the reviews and the reputation of that gym, the positioning, what kind of gym they are, and the reviews you get will base your position in the market and
So your reputation.
your reputation. But there's a way you can do it now within that we have figured out where it's you don't get that marketing fatigue we talked about earlier before we started the podcast,
Mm.
where it's like you have to try a million things, you have to do this. So I would really like to say to most, it's like people get stuck in validation mode. They get stuck in like, what's gonna work? Let's do these 80 different things.
So I do that a lot.
I do it too. And I'm in marketing, and that's how I've come to it because I'm like, oh, I can do it, so let me do it.
Paralysis by analysis type stuff.
Yep.
That's a part of that perfectionist type stuff too.
It is.
I do that as well. Yeah.
I think it's say personality type does come a lot into it. Like my wife's a family trauma therapist and I'm in branding. So there's a lot of psychological counterparts of people and what type of person they are. Um, but I'm definitely a technical expert. Like Miles Briggs, I'm a technical expert. So like I can code a website, I can do all the technical stuff. But I'm also creative, which clash. And so I very much started the business like getting very technical, like I'm do all these things. That's marketing, technical. And then I'm like, man, I lost my creativity. I need to come back in
Mm.
and bring back my visionary side because that's what I love to do, and I lost it. So, but yeah, I think that that's really what's lost in the gym. I mean, a good example is I mean, I don't know if you've ever been I don't know if they have one over here, but I know in Chandler Mall, they opened that Shields, that large sports center. It's like,
No, I haven't seen that. What is
yeah,
that?
so you go in, we spent me and my wife spent like a whole day there with the kids. Like you go in, and it was during playoffs, which was even better because they have a big screen in there. They have a Ferris wheel. It took over, I think, the Macy's or Dillard's. So as you know, it's a pretty big space.
Mhm.
So, but I was in there and they have a restaurant, but they have every possible thing you could possibly need from a sports and an athletic type of environment. And their goal is, of course, let's provide an experience where people are here all day. They can eat here. They can do stuff with the kids. They have like a aquarium in there. Like it's basically furniture for some reason. But they had everything from sports that you could possibly think of. And we spent like 7 hours in there just walking the whole thing, eating, going on the Ferris wheel. And I realized I'm like, yeah, I mean, that's not the same as a gym because they're, of course, probably investor slash franchise completely. They probably had at least 50 million to set these places up.
Yeah.
But I'm like, this is what it's turning to. Like, this is what we need to realize is that it's not about, hey, I just need to go out and get people to my gym or I need to get people here. It's about how are you providing an experience? How are you positioning yourself? You went to a yoga studio because you wanted to yoga. You started looking at rock climbing.
Sure. Yeah.
So start looking at those certain services that you are providing and how do you provide an experience around that? Does digital come into play in that? Yes. Um, but that client I was telling you about, that prospect, he had 3 gyms, and when we got on the call, he's like, "I don't know what to do because, I wanna make I tried hiring people, I tried doing this, and I don't wanna do it anymore. I wanna go everything digital." And I'm like, "Can't help you, man." I'm like, "I can't help you because you're at a pivotal point in business," which is he was at, like I think he was at, like, I don't remember, but it's like 500 to 600,000, which you definitely should not have 3 locations and only be making 600 grand a year. I mean, he was in the negatives for sure.
Mhm.
That's like a 1 location, like,
Type of thing?
type of thing. But, like, "I'm making everything digital. I don't wanna have any more employees. I just want everything to be digital." I'm like all I'm thinking in my head is like, "You're doing the exact opposite of what businesses should do." And that's, I think, the problem with a lot of people is I had another person that very similar thing happened, is they're like, "I don't wanna work with people anymore. I just wanna work for myself." And it makes sense, but personal branding and building a business for yourself, you're still gonna eventually have people working for you. You can't do everything yourself. It's
Yeah,
impossible.
I'm finding that out.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
it's and that's where the values come in, right? Like, so, yeah, I had to tell him, "I'm sorry, man, like, I just don't think that you're a good fit because I don't know how I can help you if you're not building a connection and helping our community grow by hiring people and giving them a job
Yeah.
and building values and helping them grow." And that's basically part of my contribution pillar that I had to find out, which was, hey, it's not just about making a bunch of money and then donating somewhere. It's about how do I help my employees grow? How do I help my clients grow? And how can I contribute to them in a much more simpler way and still have satisfaction? Yeah, I think it's a common trend, especially with AI now. Everyone thinks it's like, I'll just build my whole team off of AI and off of this. And I'm like, no, people want connection. People want to go somewhere where they can be like, even if you don't talk to people, I'm around this person. Oh, maybe I'm going to yoga because I really value yoga and that meditation. I was talking to an individual and I'm a part of an organization called EOA, which is businesses, within the, I think, 250 to a million range. And I was talking to someone there and he was like, my daughter, she was going through this mental fatigue in life and she ended up going to her local gym. And I don't remember if it was yoga or what type it was, but he's like, it changed her life because she found a community that she could grow with
Yeah.
like-minded people. That's the connection phase, right?
Mhm.
Connect with people that you wanna connect with. Don't think that it's like, "Let's go to 1,000,000 let's once you get to 1,000,000, you're gonna start hanging out with people that make $1,000,000." No, it's about you're connecting with the types of people that you value because you have the similar interests and values and motivation that they
That's what I've heard. Money is not it doesn't change you, it just amplifies you, right? Just makes you more do the things you wish you coulda done, but you just didn't have the money to do it, right?
Yeah, in a way, and this is a good example of me is I was actually talking to I have a coach. I have a speaking coach right now. I'm part of the speaking program, for my speaking because I told you I'm trying to become a speaker, and, one of the people in our community of that is put this video out yesterday, and she was talking about, separating out how you make money compared to your creative side. And it's very, very similar what you just said. I mean, I I don't brag about money. I feel like I work my butt off, and me and my wife both work from home, and we have 3 children. We don't complain at all, and I mean, we're pretty set right now. Like, I could retire if I wanted
Wanted
to,
to.
right now. Not forever, probably
But it's
maybe
good that you
15
can take
years.
care of the kids, man.
Mhm,
That's like the biggest thing is having that I think as like a man, you wanna have that
mhm.
power to take care of your family, you know what I mean? Like, that's a big thing that we need and want.
Yeah, and I didn't realize that for a while.
Mhm.
I think that when I first had my first child, I was very, like, felt very guilty. I was like, "Everyone says I have to love my child, like, you fall in love with this child when it's born." It took me, like, probably about a year, year and a half, of watching the child grow up.
It slowly just wear off on you a little bit. Grew
They
up, yeah.
grow it's we didn't have them in our womb for 9 months, right? We didn't grow with
They
them.
just come out, you're like, "Hey, what's going on, man?"
That's basically what happened, especially when the wife is
"What's up, dude?"
with every guy, I think this is pretty common where the wife is like, "I wanna have kids," and you're like they're like, "Are you ready?" And you're like, "I guess, yeah, let's go. Let's do it."
Yeah.
I guess I'm ready now. Uh,
Yeah.
and then you just hope that it's, like, gonna work out, and then it does, and then next thing you know, you have 3, and you're like, "Oh, jeez." But, yeah, it's the kids really helped, I think it helped me find it faster, I'll say that.
Mm,
It was which was, like, because my business was my baby. I was like, I wanted to feel seen and heard. I wanted to show people that I could do this based off of a lot of stuff from my past, but, I wanna show people I'm better than them, then you just get to a point where you're like, "Okay, now I have this money." Don't really change anything. I'm still frugal.
yeah.
I still pretty much don't buy anything. I can buy whatever I want, but I'm like, "But do
Don't
I
need it.
need it?
Don't need it.
I don't need it." Like, I don't get gratification from things.
Yeah.
I get gratification from becoming a better person and helping people and watching my kids grow up and making sure I'm there for them. I had to find that, and so the kids definitely still bring some stimulus in, and my business hasn't really grown, but I still struggle with it a bit. I still try to find time to realize that, hey, I'm blessed. And of course my business isn't growing. I'm spending 4 to 6 hours a day in this business because I'm sacrificing more time to be with my family
Sure.
while we're going through this period of.
Well, that's, like, the most successful you could ever be though, right? I heard who was it? Was it Dave Chappelle? It was either Dave Chappelle or Cat Williams, but either way, one of them said that you're not gonna see his family driving, like, fancy cars and, like, all this. He said, "None of that matters." He said his whole family is balling. Or no, it was David Goggins. I'm sorry, David Goggins. Which is kind of I usually don't hear David Goggins talk about money, so it didn't come to my thought at first. But it was David Goggins, and he said, you're not gonna see his family all driving these expensive cars and all that stuff." He said, "But they're all balling." He said, "If there's ever an issue, there's ever any need, that he's got them taken care of." And he said, "That's the most success he's ever had, is knowing that his family is set." When my brother called me last year and he had cancer, that was the number one thing. I was like, "Is how are we gonna pay for these medical bills, right?" Because the more money you have, if those issues come up, you can take care of them,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
And it gives you more peace of mind, right?
Mhm.
And so I think that's, like, the most successful. That's where I wanna go, is just I wanna go hunting in Colorado with my dad. I
Yeah.
I don't like to hunt animals. I don't like to kill animals anymore. I'm pretty soft about it, but my dad does, and I love my dad, so it's like, I just wanna go hunting, you know what I mean, with him. That's my goal, is just to have peace of mind. That's just it. It's just literally just peace of mind, you know?
I'm very similar. I've never been a fan of killing animals myself.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, peace of mind, and it's funny you say that because 'cause I've been really working on I don't know if you've ever heard of Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Mm-mm. No, what is this?
It's
How do you spell that? Do you know?
and I was going through and as I've been developing, refining my values, right? I've been kinda going through and how did I lose these values? How did I even find them? And I can't remember the first layer, but it's in a pyramid setting, you have 5 layers. And this is crazy because I already had these be my values, and I'm like, "These are what I'm missing," which was what? Confidence, connection, and contribution. I'm like, "Those are what I'm missing." You look at this pyramid, and it's like Maslow's laws of needs, hierarchy of needs, sorry, is something there's something at the bottom. I don't remember what the first one is. I think it's survival. Think it's survival, and then it goes security, and then in so many words, it's connection, confidence, and contribution. And I'm like, "Oh, crap, like, these are the 3 things." And I realized I was at this point of security. I was like, "Okay, I keep teetering back and forth and having a hard time pushing myself because I'm so, um, at this point in my business where I'm basically at what I call a valley of death period. So it's within the digital marketing space. Anyways, I've found that it's between 3 to 500K a year, where you get to a point where you're like, okay, you have to take a huge dip in earnings, underlying profits to go higher, right?
Okay.
And so I've been somewhat there, and so I got past the security phase because I saved up a lot because I told myself, "All right, I'm saving up for this, I'm saving up for that." And a lot of that came from some trauma. My parents weren't really good with money. I was a saver. And so I did the exact opposite of what they did, and I saved like crazy. But I realized I'm like, this is why I've been internally, my core value of connection, I couldn't even determine that yet and find out that I needed that or I needed to bring it back because I was so stuck in a security phase. Or I would go up to connection and then I'd lose a client or something would happen where that security boundary came back in and I had to go back down to the security and try to fix things. Right. And so it's crazy because and then it goes to that confidence side, like, the connection had to become so ingrained in me, and I had to feel so connected with myself and with other people that I could allow myself to look at that other core value of confidence and, like, how do I build confidence and move away from ego, which was my definition of confidence is, like, no ego, right? So
Mm.
so I had to do that, and then the contribution phase comes back at the very end, right? Once you have those solidified, you allow yourself to be like, all right, how am I going to contribute to the world and leave a legacy for other people around me so that when I pass on, so it's a weird need. You should look at it.
Yeah, I wrote that down. I'm definitely gonna look at that. It's kind of funny you talk about the contribution side of it because isn't it taboo when you see a man who doesn't contribute? He doesn't provide to, like, his family or to the world around him. He's just selfish with everything. Isn't it kinda taboo? It's because that's like you said, as men, like, we just want to provide for our families, for our kids, for our communities. It's funny that Luke Egebright was on here. He said his number one goal in his life was to be at a comfortable spot to where he could just write $100,000 check to any charity he wanted. That was his goal, was contribution, and it's just so taboo when you meet a man and they just don't care about anybody else but themselves. It's just so taboo to me. I see it, I'm like, even if you were a douchebag, I would just think you would still wanna contribute to the you know what I mean?
And I hate to put this back to the hierarchy of needs, but I feel like a partially that is there's just some people that are
Yeah, yeah, they're just
but
baseline that.
they're just or they haven't really figured out their own values yet. They haven't figured out what they value in life enough and allowed themselves to not be an a-hole anymore. But it could be that they're at that sense of survival, still that spot where they have. I would assume that that type of person doesn't even have any money. So that's
Mhm.
why they care about money so much because 'cause they're in the basic need of survival. I mean, I'll get people all the time, and this is a great example. I've never been one on social media because I don't like following fake gurus. Like, I hate the people that talk about cars and all that 'cause, I mean, I'm first to say
Trust fund babies.
yeah. Well, not them. I mean, they have their thing, like, good for them. I mean, I feel bad for them in general because it's hard for them to find their purpose and,
Yeah, because they're kinda just they're like, they're like, what's the word? They're just kinda thrown into a normal world and a higher state, and they just have a hard time connecting because of all the money they have. Like you said, you know what I mean?
they
It's just
do. So,
weird.
it's like they didn't fall through the steps, right?
Right,
And
there you go.
they
They
randomly
missed the steps.
they missed
Yeah.
the
Yeah,
steps
they missed
of I think how we evolve as people in certain stages, but you don't have that sense of well, back to my point. I was talking about I don't really write too much online, but when I do write something about money, like, I've come to the point where I've realized that money's just yeah, we have this staple of inflation and money, but, like, when we had trade back in the old days before we were, alive, like what, the 1800s, they would do trade, right? Like trade milk for a sheet. Like someone in the cold weather is gonna value a sheet more than someone who's or someone's gonna devalue milk if they're lactose intolerant,
Sure.
right?
Right.
So you have these things with trade. I'm like, to me, money is the same thing. It's an energy. So certain types of people are gonna value money differently, no matter what the 20,000 or 5,000 or $1,000 price tag is. And so, I write these posts and I'll talk about that type of stuff. I'll bring money in and I'll talk about, hey, money's not everything. And 99% of the time, I always get someone that jumps on and is like, does the whole like, "You don't get it all. You're just one of those mass people that, think money, blah, 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 blah," the trolls, and they're like, "I have to pay my bills," and I write them back, and I just I'm like, I get it, like,
How
write it
hard is
down.
it to pay your bills, though? I mean
Well, and it back to the point, like, I'm not mad at you, you're not at the point you're not at that a place in life, I'm not saying you're gonna if you're gonna get there or not, but you're still value around security and survival, like
Oh, so okay, so I see what you're saying now. That pyramid essentially is like you work your way up, and you can kinda tell where somebody's at in their life based on their behavior, and it kinda matches up with that. Okay,
yeah, yeah,
makes
based off of
sense.
what matches off of what they're at, but they're core values, right? And so, usually people have their own internal values are usually those are at the core, but then they have their own that, contribute to that, like
Mhm.
connection like my wife, for instance, hers is relationships, that's her connection.
Yeah.
But of course, if she's worrying about money, we're worrying about money, she's not gonna be hanging out with friends, right? We're gonna be trying to save up and
Yeah.
not go out.
I was thinking about that yesterday. I was at Fry's, and, we bought these 2 plants, and one of the plants had died, and I don't really care. I was like, plants die, it's not a big thing. It's kinda you sign up for it, right?
Mhm.
But they overcharged us by, like, $11 for these 2 little plants. So it should have been, like, 20, it was, like, 30 something, right? I didn't notice it until I was cleaning my back of my my trash just goes right behind me, right? And I was cleaning it out, and I saw the receipt. I was like, "Oh, shit. Damn, this is, like, way more." So I went to the store, and I saw this guy was at the cashier's thing, and he was hassling the guy, back and forth for, like, 10 minutes. I'm waiting 10 minutes for 40 cents. And he got his 40 cents back, and then I walked up and I was like, "Damn, I hope I never get to that point." And I kinda felt bad that I was even there for $11, but it was only because yesterday I had nothing to do and I was completely bored. I wanted to go climb, but my elbow's hurting, so I needed to rest it, and I was kinda going stir crazy a little bit, so I was just like you said, I was happy to be at the grocery store. So I went out, but I was like, "Damn, I hope I never get to the point to where 10 minutes of my time is worth 40 cents."
Well, and it's funny you say that because the things that I always growing up, my not my wife, my mom was very, like, she and I kinda got this from her a little bit. She is a hustler in so many ways, but she is the one that she will find a way, like, to fix something or get money back or do something, not in a negative way, like a scamming way, but, like, uh, if I eh for example, a couple years ago, I had an HOA payment that I paid that did not go through, and then they tried to charge us an extra, like, 50
Mm.
and yeah, I could have done that. I could have done the whole, "Hey, I'm gonna dedicate all this time and getting this money back." Um, but that one I did because 'cause I'm like, "This one's principal." Like, that's the
Just kinda
transaction.
triggered you. It kinda
Yeah.
kinda rubbed you a little wrong.
Yeah, some of them rub me wrong.
You have a power trip sometimes, it's ego, you know what I
Yeah,
mean? Yeah.
well, it's not even the ego, it's the, "Hey, man, do I need to start sending you an invoice for the amount of time I'm wasting to try to make my money back,
Right, this is the hardest
or to
thing.
pay you?"
Yeah.
The paying you one kinda gets to me sometimes, but 40 cents, we went to Target a couple weeks ago, actually, it's probably a few months ago, but I accidentally shoplift something. Like, we went out, we got to the
Oh, no.
car, we got in the car, and we're like, "Oh, man," like, it was in our bottom of our cart. I was like, "Should we go back in and pay for it?" I'm like, "Yeah."
Yeah.
So I, like, literally I grabbed it and I walked back into the store with an item and paid for it and walked out of the store, and which was no one noticed, which was a little alarming, but they probably on the cameras noticed and laughed at me,
Yeah.
but yeah, over 40 cents, like but if it's one of those situations, like, they overcharge me or, like, if I get Uber Eats and I'm like every time this happens to me now, we never get Uber Eats anymore, any of those things. We always just go out because the connection phase, right?
Yeah.
But when we're tired and the kids are tired, I'm like, all right, we'll pay the extra $15 to, have them bring food." It's always wrong.
Yeah.
And I'm like, if it's wrong, I am going to complain because I don't think it's too hard for an individual to get an order right.
Yeah. No, dude, that's how I am every time I get to carry out, and they always give you the here's an option for a
Mhm.
tip. I'm like, "Alright, I'll leave you a tip," and I leave them at 15, 20% or whatever, and I regret it every single time because I get back to the house and it's missing, like, a part of the food, like the side or, like, the beans or whatever that we've ordered Mexican or it's missing the utensils or napkins. I'm like, "Oh my god, now I gotta go back." Or I gotta go home, whatever, right? It's just such an inconvenience. You're like, I just tipped that person to get fucked up." It sucks, you know? But I think with you, the grocery store, it's good though because it sets a I think it sets a good tone with your family to where it's like you're setting a good example,
Mhm.
you know what I mean? To where they see that. I think there are some justifiable things or, some reasons, like, if somebody's being a complete asshole and then you make a mistake, you're like, "Well, they were being an asshole." It's give or take, but and some of it's there was one time, I did something super shitty, and for some reason, I'm so proud, I don't know why, but it was just so shitty and so rude, and I don't know, I'm not usually like that, I think I just had an outburst. I went to a baseball game, and there was, like, a half a mile of cars this way and a half a mile of cars this way, but there was a median, so I just took my truck, and I was on a date, and I'm like, "You know what?"
Are you one of those guys that parks backwards?
No, no,
Or
well, yeah, I usually back into places, but I I drove half a mile down the median, cut off everybody, get up to the front where the guy's, like, letting people into the stadium area, and I stop, and I look over, and I wave and let this guy go in front of me like I did him a favor, and then I drove up into the stadium, and I told my buddy that, and he was like, "You did not do," and he said, "Why'd you do that?" I don't know, I kinda just felt like being an asshole for some reason. Felt good at the moment.
so that
It was one a "fuck you world" type, one of those moments. It
yeah,
just felt good.
I think that does happen sometimes.
Sometimes it feels good to be a little bad, you know?
Yeah, sometimes you have to I'm I have my stickler points too, like, that's why I mentioned you parking backwards because it's like there's 2 types of people. I feel like there's the people that park forward and the people that park backwards, and I always talk to my wife, I'm like, "Alright, parking backwards is okay if you know, like, you're going to a baseball game and you are gonna have to get a huge truck out of, like, a huge line of cars, but I'm like, I could not think of any other reason why to park backwards.
Yeah. It is actually a habit for me because I had a truck for 9 years. So
Uh,
that's definitely it. See, it was easier to back the truck in than it was to pull it face, forward in for a truck.
yeah, for a truck, yeah.
And I still do it in my car now just out of habit. I almost feel, like, bad if I don't use my mirrors. It's like I'm from Alabama, so we just used our mirrors for
Yeah.
I have a rear camera, and I don't even use it. Just use my mirrors too.
We just got a car, our family car, and, it's like I said, I'm frugal. I mean, you could look at us from the front end and be like, "Alright, this guy has a $700,000 house, he has 3 vehicles," and I'm like, "Yeah, but both of our cars are from, like, 2010 and paid off."
Yeah, you gotta get your mileage out of them.
But we don't look we just got our first car, and it had a camera on it, and we're like, "This is amazing." Like
Those now, though, I will say that's really good. I think for kids, it's, like, essential to have a rear-facing camera in
yeah.
the car. You got to,
Mhm.
because so many kids have been backed over by mistake because you just can't see them in that blind spot, and I think that, rear-facing cameras have saved a lot of lives. I really do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they're great.
But, I think back to your like, the I I see this every time on the road, and this is one of my pet peeves is that I'll be driving. My wife calls me a grandma because I usually just go 5 over, like, even
Mhm.
I have a Dodge Challenger, and I'm, like, always just going the speed limit or 5 over. She's like, "Can you drive faster?" I'm like, "We're gonna get there at the same time." I'm like, why am I need a speed?"
Yeah.
But, when I'll be, like, going the speed limit or 5 over and I'll see a car coming up, or I'll be at least 30 seconds in front of them, and they'll think I cut them off, and I always tell my wife, like, "Watch, this guy behind us is speeding, they're gonna come up, and they're gonna do the whole aggressive, like, I'm gonna pass you, come back over."